Get the whole story.
Liter area in the border of West Pokot and Elgeyo Marakwet counties, a tense and deathly silence gives every indication of the danger that lurks in here, where homesteads, roads and market centers are abandoned. We meet Gladys Murkomen, a mother of 6, at the graveyard of her husband, who was shot dead by bandits in January 2018. The bullet, believed to have been shot from a G3 rifle, hit Murkomen, who was busy herding his herd of cattle at around 11 a.m. in the morning. Gladys and other villagers tried to rush him to the nearest hospital, but he was pronounced dead upon arrival.
Karibu Chesongo itu. Bodaboda yenyewe tulikuwa naye mafuta kaisha. Tukakaa kidogo tukaongoja mafuta. Tukafika huko yeye ameshaenda. Sasa tukarudi tu na machozi. Tangu siku hiyo mpaka saa hii hakuna kitu yenye niko naye saa hii, kwa sababu yeye alikuwa tegemeo ya nyumbani. Sasa watoto wako mbili ya hapa, watoto yangu ya kubwa, ng'ombe naenda, watoto yangu naenda, ninakaa tu bure.
Gladys and her mother-in-law, who lost 2 children in the attack, are now basking in solitude.
Hata watoto wenyewe, kama watoto wako nje kama hawa, wakisikia tu risasi kilia wanakimbia tu mpaka ndani ya nyumba. Hakuna kitu yenye tunafanya hata huku, kwa sababu kuna biashara yenye tuko nayo hata hapa. Tunakaa hata tumeona tu maisha yetu nimekaa kama wanyama peke yake, kwa sababu hatuna kitu yenye tunafanya na hakuna penye tutaenda.
Locals at Liter are now accusing the government of burying its head in the sand as the bloodletting menace continues unabated.
Hapa tulipo Elvis, ukiuliza maneno ya usalama katika upande huu ni kama unaulizia maziwa ya kuku.
Ndugu na dada ulio hapa, wewe kama sasa ni mfuasi na mmoja wa NASA, hatutaki fitina. Fitina havifai kwa NASA, kwa sababu ni wakati kama huu ndio watu wanasema kwamba ile mtungi wa maji unaweza kuvunjikia kwa mlango. Nyinyi ndugu na dada ambao mko hapa na sisi na wale ambao mnatusikiza, ni jukumu lenu kuhakikisha kwamba yule ambaye anajaribu kuleta fitina miongoni mwetu, akiwa kwa county level ama akiwa kwa kitaifa, kwa viongozi wa kitaifa, anaswe na ashindwe. Jambo la pili ambalo ningependa kuhimiza ni kwamba vile wenzangu wamesema, NASA imezidi coalition za kawaida. NASA tunataka tushikane na ndugu zetu na dada zetu ambao wako kwa trade union movement. Tunataka tushikane na civil society. Tunataka tushikane na wale wako kwa vyama. Tunataka tushikane na wakina mama na wakina vijana pahali popote walipo. Tunataka tushikane na wafanyikazi, madaktari, hata na makanisa na madini zetu zote za kitaifa. Nasema hivyo kwa sababu jukumu la kuhakikisha Kenya itakuwa vizuri sio jukumu la viongozi wa kisiasa pekee, lakini ni jukumu la kila mtu. Na wenzetu wamesema ujiulize, wewe utafanyia nini NASA ama taifa la Kenya? Lakini tutuambie NASA itanifanyia nini kila wakati. Tunataka kupitia kwa NASA tuwe tayari kuhakikisha kwamba uwizi wa kura hautafanyika katika pembe zote za taifa, kwa sababu ndugu zetu walihadaa wa Kenya kwa kuiba kura ya mwaka ule mwingine uliopita. Katika sehemu zingine agents wa upinzani labda walinunuliwa ama wakatishwa na wakapotea kwa polling station. Lakini kwa nguvu za NASA, sasa kila polling station itakuwa na macho ya NASA. Kwa upande wa utekelezaji ya serikali, mimi sina shida na sina haya kusema kwamba politics is also about power. Kwa hiyo document we talk about power sharing, and there is nothing wrong with power sharing, because NASA is not a movement to monopolize power. NASA is a movement to share power. Kwa hivyo tusiwe na haya kuambia watu wa kina Jubilee wakizungumza ati wakisema hawa wanatafuta mamlaka, na wao wanatafuta nini? Si wanataka kuhifadhi mamlaka, na taabu yao wanataka kumonopolize mamlaka. Na sisi tunasema hatutaki kumonopolize mamlaka, tunataka tugawe mamlaka. Kwa hivyo tusiwe na haya kusema huo ndio msimamo wa NASA. Jukumu kubwa kwa NASA, ndugu na dada, ni deni kubwa ambayo hawa jamaa wametuwekea. Ikiwa ni Wetangula, ikiwa ni Kalonzo, ikiwa ni Raila, ikiwa ni Mudavadi, ama ikiwa ni kiongozi mwingine katika NASA. Tukitoka hapa tujue one horrible problem we have ni ile wanaita public debt. Hawa jamaa wametuweka mzigo, na huo mzigo ni mzito, and it will mean that we will need a lot of patience and a lot of cooperation, kwa sababu target moja kusimamisha uchumi itakuwa vile tutapambana na deni ya hawa jamaa wametuwekea. Na dawa ni NASA. Dawa ni NASA. Dawa ni NASA. Ndugu na dada, kuna wenzetu ambao wanapigwa na ukamwe wakati huu. Ng'ombe zinakufa katika sehemu mbalimbali, hawana vyakula. Kule Turkana watu wanajaribu kuchimba, kama wanachimba madini ili wakitafuta maji, na hawapati hayo maji. Security imekuwa mbaya upande ule. Sasa ni jukumu letu, tukifanya hiyo tujue kwamba ni lazima tuchunge hawa watu wetu katika Kenya pahali popote walipo. Na hatutaki serikali ya Jubilee itumie bala njaa kujaribu kuonga wapigaji kura pahali wanastahili chakula. Chakula kipelekwe bila kuwashurutisha mambo ya kura, kwa sababu huu ndio mtindo wa hawa jamaa. Mimi husema kwa kimombo, their currency is a currency of default. Sisi hatutaki currency of default. Sisi viongozi wa NASA na ndugu na dada, mtusaidie tusimame imara kwa barabara ambayo tumeitaja hapa. Tuvute wenzetu, hatujafunga milango kwa wengine ambao wanataka waje. Hata nakumbuka nilipoanza kuzungumza mambo ya NASA, ndugu zetu wa Fourth Estate walichora cartoon 2-3 hivi. Moja nilikuwa nazungumza kama wazimu peke yangu, nyingine wakachora kwamba nilikuwa nimesimama pahali naambia watu muje kwa safina ya NASA, na tena nasimama peke yangu, na walichora na mashurubu yangu. Lakini sasa niko na furaha kusema kwamba Kenya imetambua NASA, na kila nyumba, kila kijiji sasa kinatamuka neno NASA. Na NASA ni National Super Alliance, na hiyo ndio ita NASA Jubilee, na waende nyumbani. La mwisho, NASA is not a violent movement. NASA is a peaceful movement that is seeking the leadership of this country in a democratic and constitutional manner. Kenya kwanza. Kwa hivyo hatutaki kamwe watu kufikiri tukiwa hapa tukisimama tukisema tunataka haki zetu that NASA is a violent movement. We stand for peace. Sisi ni watu wa amani. Lakini in that peaceful process,
Natumai
we must get our rights. Kwa hivyo tunataka tukienda mbele, tusimame, tuhakikishe tutakuwa free and fair elections. Na mimi naunga vile Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka na wengine wamesema, Mheshimiwa Raila, kwamba IEBC must come clean. It must come clean. Watuambie in no uncertain terms, are they really ready to hold free and fair elections, ama wanatuhadaa alafu watuangamize kwa mambo isiyofaa? We must be told the truth. They are coming from ground zero as IEBC today. They must tell us whether they intend to be heroes in the process that they will manage the elections of this country. Kwa hivyo mimi nasimamia hapo nikiwaomba tu sasa tuende mbele, tushikane, tujue kwamba NASA imeimarika, NASA italeta ushindi katika taifa letu. Na msiwe na hofu. Candidates wa vyama vyote vya NASA, msiwe na hofu. Hata sisi wanne tuko hapa. Hatimaye ni mmoja ambaye atapata. Kwa hivyo nyinyi pahali mliko kwa constituencies pia msiwe na hofu. Kwa sababu tukisema tunataka tuwe na hofu, then what we have done will be zero. Kwa hivyo kila mtu ajue kwamba there is competition, na hiyo competition itakuwa sawa, na vile watu wataamua what God has destined, hata mtu akijaribu namna gani, it will still come to pass. Kwa hivyo sisi nimejiunga na wenzangu after a long journey, but what we have ahead is even more promising for this country and for our people. Na nikimaliza nasema NASA hawa, NASA hawa, NASA hawa, NASA hawa. Asanteni sana, kwa sababu bado tuna mkutano mwingine na European Union kuhusu mambo ya uchaguzi.
This is how fast YouTube is with Brave. Notice how there's no pre-roll ads? And here's how...
Wednesday, the 2nd of May, was the last day the Deputy Prime Minister was flying the flag as local government minister. And he sought to let his journey in politics be known as one that has seen him make painful decisions, not once, but on several occasions.
In a game of politics like this one, you do not start taking chances.
Mudavadi is 52 years old. He is a land economist. He was elected to parliament and opposed in 1989 on a Kano ticket following the death of his father, Moses Mudavadi, who had been the constituency's long-serving legislator. He was appointed Minister for Marketing and Supplies in the same year. Other ministries under which he served during the Moi regime are Finance, Agriculture, Information, and Transport and Communication.
Sitatoa siri za baraza la mawaziri.
Under the current coalition government, he has served as Deputy Prime Minister and Minister for Local Government, a docket that is at the heart of the implementation of a devolved system of government.
I have had ambitions, like anybody else.
So he now officially bids goodbye to ODM, the party whose slogan is Chungwa Moja Maisha Bora, as he becomes a presidential aspirant under the United Democratic Forum Party. The party's headquarters is located along Muhoya Avenue off James Gishuru Road in Lavington. It is one of the newest parties in Kenyan politics, now enjoying the limelight due to Mudavadi's move. On the gate, a warning sign, Mbwa Kali, entry at own risk. Although we had an opportunity to film the offices. In 2002, Mudavadi was initially among the KANU rebel MPs led by Raila Odinga, who protested the anointment of Uhuru Kenyatta by former President Moi as his preferred successor, but he beat a hasty retreat and was appointed vice president. He was branded a traitor as he experienced a backlash in his Western Province backyard.
Ikiwa I stepped aside, that should not
He has
it is the end of the road for watu wa Western Province.
Eventually losing his parliamentary seat to Moses Akaranga, who rode on the NAC wave. After spending about a year in political oblivion, he ditched KANU for Raila Odinga's Liberal Democratic Movement that was a partner in the then NAC government.
Ng'ombe akivunjika mguu hurudi zizini.
About 10 years later, Musalia Mudavadi makes yet another painful decision in what the ODM fraternity calls betrayal influenced by external forces and not genuine ambitions.
That is the propaganda machine of my opponents. Let me be very honest.
It is a journey he says he is prepared for, and observers say this is the beginning of the real test of his organizational capacity, given that it is for the first time that his name will be appearing on the ballot paper. Alex Chamwada for Citizen Live at 9 at KICC.
If you suffer from lower back pain, sciatica, or neck and shoulder pain, you must see this. This short...
He has decades of experience.
How are you doing?
Thank you.
All right. Welcome to Center.
This is the Musalia Mudavadi Center.
Absolutely.
We want to get to see a bit of the other side to Musalia that perhaps a lot of people don't know.
Okay.
Wycliffe Musalia Mudavadi is a creature of the landscape of political power. His story can be summarized by 3 words: proximity to power.
But I just want to draw your attention to something here. This, our first president, 1964 to 1978, is Musalia Kenyatta. And then the second president, Daniel Arap Moi, 1978 to 2002. Clearly, the 2022 tag will be fitted in.
Are we likely to see a 2022 dash of Honorable Musalia Mudavadi? Are we likely to see you follow that?
God willing, and also through the Kenyans' wish. The Muslims say inshallah. But I say God willing.
Very interesting. We spoke about Moi.
Yes.
Your body language there looks like you really had a good working relationship.
Yes, we did. I must admit we did.
He was retired President Daniel Arap Moi's last vice president, albeit the shortest serving. He was touted as the likely second in command if Raila Odinga clinched the presidency in 2007. And finished a distant third when he threw his hat in the ring 5 years later. He's the son of Moses Mudavadi, a one-time powerful cabinet minister in Moi's administration. The famous family name often finding him categorized among the dynasties in the country's political dichotomy of the haves versus the have-nots.
Extremely naive sometimes in terms of how people want to try and categorize Kenyans. Because of politics, we are beginning to see people trying to take advantage of a difficult economic situation in the country, prevailing in the country, to try and categorize people as dynasties and non-dynasties. So it's a cheap ploy for political gain.
But the hustler vs. dynasties narrative makes the former Sabatia MP uncomfortable.
My early life, my dad was not a minister. My father became a minister much later in my life. Therefore, the foundation that I have in terms of who I am the formative times were always in the context of like any other citizen. I spent my early days in public schools here in Nairobi. We were brought up through a culture of school and holiday in the rural area. So religiously, every school holiday I had to spend in Mululu, in Sabatia.
Mzee Moi's demise was a personal loss for Mudavadi, having served as his fourth vice president. Moi was for the former local government minister a mentor who largely shaped his political outlook.
Transition is not easy. Moi was transiting. And Moi, I think, had his own ideas of how to manage the transition or how to manage the succession within the framework of KANU. Sometimes you look at it and say the more things change, the more they become the same. We are in a transition again, heading to 2022, and Kenyans will be making their decision. But you can draw some parallels. In the build-up to 2002, Moi had ceased to have confidence in his deputy president or his vice president then. And at that time, we were talking of the late Professor George Saitoti. If you look at it now and you read the politics, unless it's a narrative that is fiction or stranger than fiction, so to speak, it would appear that sometimes the president and his deputy don't seem to be reading from the same script. Here I am as a traditionalist. Omwami is a leader.
But Mudavadi's major struggle has been to consolidate the vote-rich Western Kenya region that has been an open hunting ground for presidential hopefuls since the country returned to multi-partyism in a country where ethnicity is a tool of political mobilization. Mudavadi, though seen as the first son of Western Kenya politics, is yet to solidify his grip in the House of Mulembe.
This is the weakness that I see in our political circles and sometimes even in our media houses. They are so fixated on the personality politics that when people are raising issues, they don't want to pick up the issues.
The Amani Congress boss has seemingly been playing safe with an eye on 2022 State House succession. Often viewed as an alternative or compromise candidate, his initial hard stance on the Building Bridges initiative and the clamor for constitutional amendments has faded away. In its place, support for the referendum push before the country heads back to the ballot in under 19 months.
When you look at the BBI, let us put the country first. Because the initial process of getting to the BBI, the handshake and what have you, and then the way it was being marketed or presented, unfortunately, it was being presented as if it is an agreement or an arrangement of just two people. So it lacked that process of inclusivity, the whole idea of bringing people together. The intent and the content of BBI is broadly good, but there are fundamental issues that need to be revisited. We were able to track about 14 changes, which included things like the independence of the IEBC. In the report that was presented in Bomas, there was a massive interference on the independence of the IEBC. We raised concerns. And I had said that if these changes are dealt with, then we are good to go. So tell me, where have I been inconsistent?
Nataka nizindue number 5.
While the current political setup appears to pit Deputy President William Ruto's camp against that of ODM leader Raila Odinga, efforts to profile Mudavadi's stake in the greater scheme of things are afoot. His presence during national festivities and government-driven projects, such as the Huduma number that was riddled with controversy, raising attention.
Are state functions or national holidays days for the president, or are they national holidays for all Kenyans? Don't you think it's absolutely naive for somebody to think that a national day recognized in our constitution like Jamhuri Day, that I should not participate in a Jamhuri Day? I think that is out of question. We should help people to understand that they are national days and they are very personal events of a president. And I would like to encourage Kenyans to get out of the hangover that was there when people were fighting for the multipartyism. At that time, we were able to see people boycotting national holidays. The agenda then was very different, and the approach for those who wanted to boycott was that of an outright protest. Just because I'm not in government, we should not cease to be objective. If the government is doing something that is positive, let us acknowledge it. And where they are failing in their policy direction and not doing things right, then we criticize them.
He cites corruption, mismanagement of public funds, and poor policy decision by leaders, both political and those heading various institutions, as the bane of the country.
Where we are, with a debt that is close to 8.4 trillion public debt, and now the bulk of it is external. So there are two risks. One, it is expensive. Two, we can be subjected to very serious exchange rate fluctuations.
Which is where we currently are.
And it then impacts immediately on that debt. All right, that is where we are. So what would I do? One of the things I've said is that the Minister for Finance, and he recently admitted, he has to renegotiate with our creditors so that our debt can either be rescheduled or restructured. What has happened in the Jubilee debt portfolio is that for some of these infrastructure projects, they have taken money at a rate of 7%, repayable in 15 years. And it's in billions. So the bigger problem we have here, the more the taxation will become, the more painful and punitive it will become. So in simple language, as Fuliza is dealing with the ordinary citizen, the government is also having its mega Fuliza with the big creditors calling on them, calling on the treasury to say, this installment is due, this installment is due.
The former finance minister speaks of an economy ravaged by the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic, but lauds the Ministry of Health for being hands-on in the midst of an image-denting multi-billion shilling scam at KEMSA.
What will be critical is to actually make sure that we prioritize the allocation of our resources properly. This is going to be more an issue of prudent resource management. Suspend some projects, cut out some programs that had been there, and let the resources focus on where there would be serious multiplier effects. Education, health. What can we do to actually spur investors to start looking into Kenya afresh?
He has vast experience in public leadership, having been a vice president, a deputy prime minister, and cabinet minister in charge of various dockets.
In my career, in political careers, for instance, where I go through, there are issues that there are storms you come through. Sometimes you can become so passionate.
This may seem
about
strange,
some of these
but if you're slowly losing your eyesight, stop eating.
But you don't see the deeper impact or meaning of some of those storms. For instance, the succession politics of 2002. It was not easy. We went through a very difficult time, a lot of turmoil. And of course, I lost my seat. I go through in this book how, for instance, for 3 years, I was subjected to a commission of inquiry. Can you imagine? The person who stopped Goldenberg, that is me. I was now being subjected to the commission of inquiry as if I was the author of it.
His backbone, he says, is his family.
Share with us about family.
Family is your pillar. At the end of the day, after you've gone through the rigorous aspects of our politics, you have to go back home. And when you go home, the people who talk to you, who look at you as who you are, they don't look at your position. They don't look at your status. They're talking to you as your closest people. And that is how I take it. And it's these are my 2 sons.
Yes.
My wife and my daughter.
So 3 children.
3 children. Yeah.
All teenagers?
No. They're now in the early 20s.
Great.
Believe you me, I've been a very good sportsman in my earlier days. When I left Nairobi School in 1979, I actually held the 100 and 200 meters record. And I left it there. I don't know who broke it eventually. On the Kenyan front, I'm a fan of AFC Leopards. When I go into the Premier League, I'm a fan of Manu. Okay, and sometimes on the Kenyan front, and when we go to La Liga, I'm sometimes torn between Real Madrid and Barcelona. So that's the soccer side of it.
ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi has been fronted as a possible presidential contender in 2022. Is he the change Kenya wants to see? Only the ballot will tell.
Nafasi Kalonzo na afyatue yake, Musalia afyatue yake, Weta afyatue yake. Sasa tunaona ndugu yetu ameenda kukopa bunduki ya mwingine, anataka kufyatua tena.
We have a very interesting conversation lined up tonight where we feature a one-on-one sit-down with that man, ANC party leader Musalia Mudavadi, against a backdrop of conflicting political events that includes a looming fallout in the NASA coalition. Honorable Musalia, thank you so much for staying with us. We did speak a bit earlier on, but we now want to switch gears a little bit. You obviously listened to yourself in that soundbite there. We've all witnessed an exchange of fire between former NASA principals, yourself, Honorable Raila Odinga, Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, but I guess you can speak for yourself on this one. Help us understand what is going on.
Well, maybe I can just put it in a humorous way. You know, right now we are in the state of COVID. So I can very comfortably say that NASA maybe is on a political ventilator as we speak. That means that the health of NASA is not very good as we speak. NASA as a coalition is suffering from a breach of trust. The confidence amongst the founding party members of NASA is low at this point in time. And therefore, going forward, one may want to anticipate that there shall be new political formations in the offing as we go forward. But right now, the actual status is that legally, NASA remains in place. But in terms of functionality, NASA has not been pulling as one.
Honorable Musalia, help us understand why now. It's not the first time we've had statements like NASA is dead, ODM Secretary General Sifuna, amongst many others have said that we've seen the best years of NASA, so to speak. But why now? Why are we seeing this back and forth, these comments between the NASA leaders at a time like this?
Well, I've talked about the breach of trust. That's where I've pitched my argument. And you see, where does it come from? It comes from the fact that we entered into a coalition agreement. We all appended our signatures to that coalition agreement. We registered this coalition agreement with the Register of Political Parties. But in terms of honoring the contents of that agreement, we have not been able to achieve that. And that is why I say that...
What are the contents? Help us understand. You know, you're speaking about a document Kenyans may not have seen before. Well, what were the contents of that document?
Actually, to be honest, I'll tell you one thing. We've made sure that the contents of that document are even made available to all the media houses. Believe you me, we have had copies released to all media houses. Now, the key factor around there is that we set out principles on what we should expect to do had we taken over the realm of government, which we did not. But we had also anticipated that if we do not take over government, we shall remain united and effective opposition. All right? But we had a program on the economy of this country. We had a program on the issues of governance of this country in that document. But over and above that, we also agreed that the party that was going to produce the flag bearer in that coalition, and this was ODM, would not then field a presidential candidate in subsequent elections, general election. Other than that, there was also the issue that we also entered into an arrangement to share what you'd call the political parties fund, and it is put in that document. So these are very fundamental issues. So as we speak, we do not share the political parties funds. All right? So that is an issue that has not been resolved to this day.
Could the major bone of contention be about ODM potentially fielding a presidential candidate in the future? And one would then ask you, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, are you waiting to be endorsed by NASA or by the parties that constitute NASA?
First of all, let's just put it this way. We are talking about NASA, isn't it? And let's just put it in the right context. Because an agreement is as good as the people that make it. An agreement is judged by the quality, the fidelity to the content of that agreement. So if we enter into agreement, let us live by our commitments. That is how we can become accountable as a people, as political parties. That is what it should be. So if we breach the contents of those agreements, then it shows that it was purely an arrangement for expediency. Now, let's talk about endorsements. My friend, let us not cheat ourselves. Politics is about endorsements. You will seek endorsement from a business community. You will seek endorsement from the civil society. You will seek endorsement from certain pressure groups, certain lobby groups. It happens all over the world. And the ultimate endorsement, the final endorsement, the one that is the final stamp of approval, is the endorsement from the voter. So we should not shy away about talking about endorsements. You earn it. You build a process. You persuade people with their ideas. And if they buy into it, they endorse you. And ultimately, the people have the final say through the vote.
Some would say, however, the problem with the endorsements that we see in this country is that it eventually leads to a very narrow pool of contestants, so to speak, or candidates at the very end, denying the voter a wide pool to choose from.
No. And
there are those who see that as working against democracy.
An endorsement does not mean that you are stopping other people from contesting for any position. Let us be realistic. For instance, if a political party endorses me, ANC has endorsed me, they have done it as a party. Other parties will endorse their candidates. And those candidates will go and seek endorsement from other critical constituencies in this country. So let's not beat about the bush on something like this. And let's even go further. Somebody says, did the president endorse you? The president did not endorse me. But, frankly speaking, I would be lying if our politician had said that his endorsement would be worth nothing. He's a critical player in this country, and so are others.
Are you actively seeking the president's endorsement tonight?
If I can persuade him, fine.
Is that the path you're on?
No, not necessarily so, but I'm saying if I can persuade him, fine. But it's his right. He can make that decision. But we should not shy away and pretend that endorsements do not matter. If you go back and you watch what we did when we were in NASA, I was the one who was speaking at Uhuru Park. And we clearly endorsed Raila as the candidate for NASA. It was an endorsement. And after that, the final endorsement would come through the vote of the Kenyan people.
Honorable Musalia, I hear you loud and clear, but what do you say to those who feel a perception that previously the kind of politics you've played is as one who is a fence sitter, waiting to be endorsed rather than going out to the voters to personally speak to them? How do you respond to those who are asking that question tonight?
They don't know me.
Tell us about yourself.
All right. I've been in politics for quite a long time. I've won elections and I've also lost elections. And I know what it takes. You campaign, you have to seek and move out. So those who want to perpetuate a certain narrative, that is their wish. But I've constantly said, I should not be seen or judged in the prism of other politicians. Our retired president, Mzee Mwai Kibaki, said, kila mtu ana style yake. I have my own style. I don't have to be abrasive. I don't have to be shouting at the rooftops and insulting people for people to know that Musalia is out seeking for votes. I prefer to focus on issue-based politics. Unfortunately, we have a very large constituency in our country that go for the intrigues rather than the content.
You've spoken about issue-based politics, Honorable Musalia. I want to refer you to a letter released to the press a couple of days ago by Kibisu Kabatesi, your spokesperson, in reference to a statement by Raila Odinga that he'll not endorse any of the NASA candidates because they failed to show up at his swearing-in, and he went on to address that. What I'm keen to get your views on is at the tail end of that letter, which I believe was written in your name. You referred to Honorable Raila Odinga as follows. He hates being reminded that he's a political con, but reminded he'll be until he forgoes deceit. Politics of deceit will not befit a Kenyan leader. Are you aware of the contents of that statement?
Yes, I'm
Those
aware.
are in your words?
I'm aware of that content.
Are you telling us tonight, Honorable Musalia Mudavadi, that you'd actually call Raila Odinga a political con?
I think it is important that we address issues as they are. The issue of the swearing in at Uhuru Park. What was it all about?
Tell us.
It's a rhetorical question that Kenyans need to reflect on. After the swearing in, what happened? Which government did we form? What is our status today? Who is the president of Kenya? It's Uhuru Kenyatta. So what was that process all about? These are the facts that we need to understand.
You stand by the statement, you stand by those words. Those are very strong statements.
So the point I'm putting across is that let us come out and speak to the truth on a lot of issues. That even in the media, they call it a mock swearing in. Now you cannot therefore say that because there was a mock swearing in, that you want to hold it against us because we did not participate in a mock swearing in. But if indeed that was to be the judge or the determinant of the leadership of this country, then what about Joho, who attended it? Will he be endorsed?
I want you to respond to a question by a viewer. We've actually put it up on the screen. Kiberenge Jr. asks, there have been contrasting versions of why Mudavadi and his two colleagues never made it to Uhuru Park. From the Nigerian number, to withdrawal of security, to not wanting to participate in an illegal administration of oath. Can Honorable Mudavadi settle this issue once and for all?
I have settled it. It was a process that was full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. Uhuru remains the president of Kenya.
What actually happened on that day? I think that is the mystery that still remains.
It's water under the bridge.
It's not, if this statement is anything to go by, Honorable Musalia.
It is water under the bridge. What happened, happened.
What happened?
There was a mock swearing-in ceremony. We did not participate, and it was illegal.
Are you saying that you intentionally stayed away? It was not about being blocked by security, as we've heard from Honorable Kalonzo. It was not about lack of communication from Honorable Raila.
Do you know, let me just put it this way. As a NASA team, we debated this thing at length. I have been a vice president. I have been a minister for finance in this country. Kalonzo has been a vice president, and Kalonzo has also been a minister for foreign affairs. Wetangula has been a minister for foreign affairs. Honorable Raila Odinga has been a prime minister. We debated this thing at length, and it was very clear that in this day and age, a mock ceremony like that will receive no recognition, whether here or internationally. It will be of no basis in law. In fact, it seems to perpetuate a process of impunity. We are seeking to be leaders of this country through the mandate of the people, through a constitutional process. We cannot therefore be tied to a process that completely breaches the Constitution. And I rest my case there.
You rest your case there. Before we move on, the discussion about the Nigerian number, fictional?
It is of no consequence. It's of no consequence.
You choose not to answer that question.
It is of no consequence. I think the substantive issue I have dealt with.
So do you then, when you call Honorable Raila Odinga and his style of politics as a political con, in your statement, one would then ask why?
I think what people need to know is that that process was a process which we need to put behind us, and we should never repeat that process.
Again.
As a nation.
So why are you seeking endorsement from a player you've dubbed as a political con?
Did I say I was seeking endorsement from him?
Well, what we heard there is that it's time for him to give Kalonzo a chance, you a chance?
It is, I was talking to the content of what was in the coalition agreement. I'm speaking to what was in the coalition agreement. I'm holding somebody to account in the context of the coalition agreement, which we all signed. But it is its constitutional right. It's also ODM's right. They can decide to stick to the coalition agreement, or they can decide to throw it outside the window.
Will you work with ODM or Raila Odinga ever again?
In politics, you say never. Say never. You can work together. But what we learn along the way is that anytime you move forward, you must become much wiser in any other formation or agreement that you enter into.
Okay. Speaking of agreements or formations that you enter into, we recently saw you in Machakos County, in the western parts of the country as well, with Honorable Kalonzo Musyoka, Moses Wetangula, and Gideon Moi. We've seen you quite a bit together, and there's talk of a coalition as well. Please, again, I'm giving you a chance on this program to clear there on several issues. Let's get into that one now. What is that about?
It is a process. We are facing by-elections, aren't we? There's a by-election there, so we did not field a candidate as ANC. And we talked, and we said, let us give support to the candidate that the Wiper Democratic Party has nominated in Machakos. And this is being reciprocated in Kabuchai, where Ford Kenya lost the MP, and they have a candidate in the by-election. And in Matungu, ANC lost its MP, and we have a candidate. So it is a process. And this is how building confidence begins. This is how trust is built. You systematically work together, and God knows, as we move forward, we would be happy to work with other Kenyans going forward.
What's the end result of that particular process? I know you want to bring in other Kenyans, but I'm curious about your dalliance, so to speak, with Kalonzo Musyoka, Honorable Tangula, and...
By the way, why do you call it a dalliance? Remember, we had already been working together in the NASA coalition, yeah? Although it is not as functional as it should be. Remember, we are there legally. We are still within the same coalition. As much as I've said, it's on a political ventilator.
We have definitely seen an increase in activities, and I want to understand the end game of this.
The whole thing is this: politics is dynamic, and as we move forward, Maura, I think we should expect new political formations and realignments as we get closer to 2022, and that you can take to the bank.
What could be the name of the political formation that you are currently moving around the country?
Let us take one step at a time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Are there any lessons learned, having been in previous political arrangements, that would advise how you would engage moving forward to avoid what we've seen every 5 years during our election cycle?
I think trust is so important. Then we may have to even look at some aspects under the Political Parties Act, so that we can give the registrar, of political parties, more ability or even greater legal muscle to enforce and ensure coalition agreements are being honored. Because we have to come to the understanding that in this country, coalitions are going to be here to stay. And it is therefore important that the Registrar of Political Parties strengthens, or has the law strengthened, not just for the regulation of political parties as individual parties, but also coalitions. This is how we build a good country. This is how we consolidate democracy.
Speaking of building a good country, consolidating democracy, they say also that the more the choices for the people, possibly the better decisions that they will make. Even as we focus on the presidential race that will be there next year, there's a new entrant from the Western region. He goes by the name of Dr. Mukisa Kitui. He announced that he'll be vying about a week or two ago. How will that affect or impact your candidature?
First of all, it is Dr. Kitui's constitutional right to declare an interest in whatever seat he chooses to do so. And if he has chosen to declare an interest in the presidency, then that is perfectly in order. He cannot be stopped. It's only the voter who will decide at the end of the day. Once they have assessed the manifestos of the various candidates, then they'll do it. It does not affect my candidacy at all. It does not. And why do we make it look like it is different? I mean, Uhuru, in the last election, stood for the presidency. And at one time, there was Paul Mwite from the same region, there was Martha Karua from the same region, and there was Peter Kenneth from the same region. And they contested. And the voter made a decision.
It has a lot to do, Honorable Musalia, with the fact that you need a strong start at home, in your stronghold, in your backyard, whichever way you choose to look at it. And having an opponent there could actually weaken your start.
I think the reality of it is this. It is not going to be the first time that multiple candidates have emerged from one part of the country to seek the presidency. What is important at the end of the day is how one markets his agenda or her agenda and what the people will think about it. Competition is healthy.
Okay. Honorable Musalia, ask you a couple of questions about the economy, but I actually want to bring up viewers' feedback on this because a lot of that has been coming in. This is what viewers are saying tonight. We have that first tweet, I believe. Let's put it up. Okay, this one is coming in from Thomas Kimutai. He's asking, ask Musalia Mudavadi what's his stand on the wage bill. While adding 180 nominated women MPs, 70 new MPs, will that not have a significant effect on the wage bill? It takes 20 million monthly to support one MP. Okay, I'm not sure where he gets those numbers from. What will be the remedy for this? Okay, let's take one or two more. This one coming in, Abdullahi Dero is asking, ask Musalia how true is the speculation out there on the street that Musalia, Kalonzo and Gideon are teaming up against Raila. I think we have another one here. Kaka Bramzi, Musalia Mudavadi is our guru in economy. According to him, what should be the priority for the country between BBI and fighting COVID-19? Does the BBI have a formula we don't know that will help in faster paying of national debt? So we're getting to that economy discussion now, Honorable Musalia, and I do have a soundbite that I'll be playing shortly for you, but I want to give you a chance to respond to that question about the possibility, what the wage bill would look like post-BBI, and it's been repeated again by Kaka Bramzi.
Well, definitely the wage bill will rise. That's a fact. If we go through the BBI and there are certain adjustments, it's very possible, and it is true, that the wage bill will adjust upwards. But let me put it this way also. The challenge we have at the moment as a country is that there's also a lot of wastage. We are still losing a lot of money through pilferage, through corruption. And if we deal with these issues more effectively, the whole issue about how big the wage bill will be will now become a secondary issue. But right now, the reality is that we already have a huge wage bill. There's pressure on the taxpayer. There's pressure on the people of Kenya. And indeed, this is why perhaps even the IMF, as they talk, they're talking about possible restructuring and thinning out of the public service, so that aspects about the wage bill and so forth can also be moderated. So indeed, there's that challenge. But going forward, all I can tell the Kenyans is this. If we have a growing economy, an economy that is working for all, we shall be, and then we tighten our belts to live within our means, we shall be able to handle Kenya's situation well.
I want to actually get specifics from you on that one, and I want to begin by playing this clip. This was an interview that you conducted, Honorable Musalia, or you were interviewed in December, and this is what you had to say about the state of the economy.
What has happened in the Jubilee debt portfolio is that for some of these infrastructure projects, they have taken money at a rate of 7%, repayable in 15 years. And it's in billions. So the bigger problem we have here, the more the taxation will become, the more painful and punitive it will become. So in simple language, as Fuliza is dealing with the ordinary citizen, the government is also having its mega Fuliza with the big creditors calling on them, calling on the treasury to say this installment is due, this installment is due.
Honorable Musalia, no doubt you're passionate about the economy. In December, you gave that warning that there's a mega Fuliza, so to speak. We're now looking at a situation, according to the latest reports, that Kenya could start paying up to 1 trillion for loans in the financial year starting July. Should you become president, how would you steer what some would call an over-leveraged economy that is paying off more debt than it actually has money for to do other expenditure with?
First of all, let me just let Kenyans know that I started raising this issue way back in 2015, telling them that the rate at which we are seeing borrowing on part of the government is going to haunt us in a very short while. I did raise these issues. So it is true. And for everybody to be on the same page, when you have infrastructure projects, mega infrastructure projects, it is always good to take concessionary loans, repayable over a longer period of time. Because the return on some of these infrastructure projects may not be seen in the short time that we are seeing. So, for instance, what would be a concessionary loan be? A concessionary loan would be something like borrowing at 1% or even less than 1% interest rate, repayable over a 30-year period. These are concessionary loans. But some of the loans that are now hitting us, as much as they have gone into infrastructure, they are loans that are supposed to be repaid over a 15-year period at an interest rate of perhaps 7%. That is what becomes painful.
Which is why I want to hear from you.
So, what did I tell them to do? I told them from the very beginning, and I'm happy that the Treasury has started doing this, that you must find a way of renegotiating some of these loans, have some of them rescheduled, even have an arrangement where you can talk to some people so that you refinance with longer term. You retire the expensive debt and have it refinanced with long term.
And yet that may not be enough. It was reported we recently went for another Euro bond.
Now that refinance, we have recently gone that. You see, it can become dangerous because right now, if anything is to go by, our public debt is at about 65% of our GDP. That is high for our economy like ours.
Which is why I want to know from you specifics. What would you do different? And let me give you scenarios.
So one of the things I would tell you is that I would go to an aggressive process of renegotiating and rescheduling our public debt. That is absolutely essential. So that you can have sufficient resources in the country released to spark growth in our economy.
That we've already seen intentions of by Treasury. Would you also, for example, cut government spending, adopt public expenditure reviews? Is that something you'd actually look to do?
Of course, you have to realign, you have to go through a process of fiscal consolidation, realignment of public expenditure, so that some areas, for instance, if there are programs that have never taken off, the feasibility studies have not been done or they're at a feasibility study level, suspend some of them. Complete the ones that are already in motion so that you don't have white elephants all over the place. But then don't get into engagements that are not properly budgeted for. This is going to be a very painful process for the Kenyan people. I can tell you that. It's not an issue that you will get out of quickly. And this is why I've been stating time and again that Kenyans must make a very deliberate choice to ensure that the government they put in 2022 will be a government that will be focused on solid economic management so that we can start creating jobs. We have lost 2 million jobs. COVID or no COVID, the reality is that 2 million Kenyans have had to walk away from where they were earning. Now, that means that whatever we do going forward, let us have a government, let us have a parliament, let us have a public service or civil service that will be focused on this.
Honorable Musalia, what some Kenyans may be struggling to understand tonight is this, and this has come from at least more than one presidential candidate. On one hand, someone like you supports the BBI, and yet we know the BBI will come with a wage bill requirement post-referendum that the next government will need to shoulder. At the same time, the next government, you're telling us, will need to cut back dramatically. Do you see a contradiction?
You see, cutting back...
That you're telling them, support this document, yes, there will be a wage bill increase, but at the same time, as soon as we're done with the referendum in 2022, we have to cut back dramatically. Help Kenyans understand how to navigate this.
You know one of the things that I said, and I said that it is important, in fact, in our earlier conversation, I said I'm happy that this process is now moving forward because we seem to have been possessed as a people around the BBI issue. So to me, it may be painful in the short term, but let us get over it. Let it not be an agenda for 2022. Let us start working and helping Kenyans to understand that the leaders we want at MCA level, at parliamentary level, at presidential level, must be leaders who will be committing to revival of the economy. I'm not saying good governance and other issues will not matter, they will matter. Revival of the economy means taking a tougher stand on corruption, so that there's less wastage, there's less theft. These are issues that we must have a judiciary that will function appropriately to anchor the growth of the economy. We must have a civil service that will have its morale boosted. Because right now the morale of the civil service is low.
Do you raise these concerns when you meet President Uhuru Kenyatta? Unlike many Kenyans, you probably can reach out to him.
Of course.
Do you raise those concerns?
When we have an opportunity, we talk about matters of the economy. We share something in common. He was Minister for Finance at one time. I was Minister for Finance. And whenever we have had an opportunity to discuss matters of the economy, we talk about these things candidly.
Honorable Musalia, I have lots of questions that have come in that I'm going to give you a chance to respond to. But let's do this. Let's take a quick break. We'll look at those questions and get some further thoughts from Honorable Musalia Mudavadi on the other side of this break. ANC Party Leader, we're talking about NASA, we're talking about the political state of the country, but also the economy as well. He's warning that it's going to be tough, and I'm asking him what's he going to do about it. We get more into that on the other side of the break. You're watching Newsnight. Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Haya, karibu sana katika ukumbi huu wa Bomas of Kenya. Karibu sana. Tunakukaribisha kwa moyo mkunjufu kabisa. Nakumbuka leo ni siku ya muhimu sana katika Jamhuri ya Kenya, ambapo His Excellency Musalia Mudavadi atakuwa anatoa usemi utakaotikisa siasa na maslahi ya Jamhuri ya Kenya, na ni ya maana sana tuweze kujua ya kwamba
Mudavadi mwenyewe anaoji video
Kenya ije ya kwanza,
ili kuweza kuona nini kinafanyika.
Kenya kwanza. Sawa. Haya, kama ndio unaweza kufika sasa na hauna mwelekeo, tafadhali ulizia Ashas watakuelekeza ni wapi unafaa kuingia na unafaa kuwa umevalia wristband gani. Yes, kama ni ya green unafaa kuelekea wapi, kama ni ya red unafaa kuelekea wapi, watakuwa wanakuelekeza. Hakikisha umeuliza ndugu au dada amevalia tag ya security. Sawa? Kama unaona mtu amevalia tag au sare za security, tafadhali muulizie ni wapi mtu ambaye amevaa tag fulani ama wristband fulani atakuwa anaelekezwa wapi. Utakuwa unapata mwelekeo kutoka kwa ndugu na dada zetu ambao wako.
Hii tu ni kuonyeshe tu vile ambavyo watu wamefurika furi watu, na kila mtu amefurahia kuweza kuja kujiunga naye anayewania kiti cha urais hapa nchini Kenya. Anawania kiti cha urais hapa nchini Kenya. Musalia Mudavadi alisema kwamba kutakuwa na earthquake ambayo inakuja, na kwa sasa tunangoja earthquake zaidi ikuja kufanyika, kwa sababu ni kitu watu wengi wamekuwa kingoja na imeweza kuwadia kwa sasa, na ni kwa muda mrefu zaidi. Kumbuka ni One Kenya Alliance wamekuwa wakisema kwamba lazima wafike debeni. watu wamefurika zaidi. Ukitizama watu ni wengi, na hapa ndo earthquake inakuja kuanzia. Hii inaenda iko live kwa TV zote tu. Unasikiaje kuwa hapa leo?
Nafurahi sana.
Mbona unatoroka? Ni swali ndogo tu, ni swali ndogo. Unasikiaje kuwa hapa kwa? Unasema leo kuna leo kuna earthquake. Zimekuwa nyingi, watu hawaku expect watu wataweza kuwa wengi vile ambavyo kwa sasa wapo, na social media Kumejaa furifuri. kule. Nini ya huko? Main camera iko kule bodi ya moto. Nchini Kenya. Tulia. Nafilikuka hapa juu. Nafilikuka hapa juu. Hata simeni wanaona hivyo. Hapa juu ni safe. Ni short kutoka fitu chini. Tangu sikia kama unaweza panda. Utaistabilize. Utaistabilize. Stability. Mbona kama nipanda hapa juu? Relax.
jacket. Utulie pole pole, pole pole. Hey, derecho. Pole pole, bwana. Pole pole.